Now, Gordon Chang joins me here in New York City. Obvious question, Gordon. Who suffers the most in this trade war, China or the United States?
Well, China does. First of all, its economy is probably contracting. We saw this from the price data for March, where both consumer and producer prices were below zero. Also, the thing is, they're having their 2008 right now. You know, in 2008, they didn't want a downturn. They overstimulated, took on a lot of debt. Now they got to deal with the debt. Property market is collapsing. And then Trump says we're having this tariff war. And what this does is it really closes off China's biggest market, the United States. So these 145% tariffs, most Chinese goods don't get into the U.S. because of that. Now, the only way that Xi Jinping can win this trade war is if he can convince President Trump, who's holding all the high cards from an objective point of view. The only way Xi Jinping wins is if he can get Wall Street or Main Street or the farmers to force Trump to back down preemptively. I don't think that's going to happen because our president's pretty determined.
Could he unleash, Xi Jinping, could he unleash financial warfare? China holds $760 billion worth of treasury debt. If they sell some of it, prices go down and our interest rates go up. He could do that.
He could do that, but he probably not going to because that has a lot of effect on the renminbi. Remember, he wants to sell U.S. dollar debt because he needs to prop up his currency, but he needs to do it in a controlled manner. If he crashes the U.S. dollar, which he probably could do, you know, it's lights out for him. So I don't think he's going to do that. He's got a lot more vulnerabilities than we do. We're the bigger economy. We're the trade deficit economy. You know, we hold the high cards.
Now, Xi Jinping is about to embark on a tour of Southeast Asia, touring his neighbors. He's looking for support, isn't he? He wants them to gang up with Xi Jinping against America. Is that going to happen?
I don't really think so. The problem here is that Xi Jinping now has a lot of goods he's not selling to the U.S. He needs to sell them to ASEAN. These are ASEAN countries. You know, maybe they'll take a few more, but probably not because they don't want the Chinese to decimate their own internal industries. So I think Xi Jinping's going to have a hard time. You know, he'll get these guys to say some very lovely things, but I don't think they're going to move on substantive points.
Okay. According to the Wall Street Journal, Chinese officials held a secret meeting. It was amongst themselves. They acknowledged their role in the cyber attacks on American infrastructure. Responding to that story, Chinese embassy spokesman says China firmly opposes the smear attacks against China without any factual basis. The U.S. needs to stop using cybersecurity to smear and slander China and stop spreading all kinds of disinformation about the so-called Chinese hacking threats. We urge the U.S. to adopt a responsible attitude and take a harder look at itself rather than vilifying others. Why do you say that is ominous?
It's because, you know, we've known for decades that the Chinese have gone after our infrastructure and critical infrastructure with cyber. But the point is now the Chinese are actually admitting it to the United States. That's basically saying, you don't scare us anymore, U.S. U.S., you're not deterring us. And I think that that betrays a different mentality in Beijing, a very arrogant one, a very belligerent one, one that really hates the U.S. So, you know, anything can happen when they're not deterred.
Their cyber attacks can hurt us. Do we have the capacity to cyber attack them and hurt them?
Yeah, I think that we do. We don't really...
We're not going to say anything about it, though, are we?
We're not going to say very much about it. We need to be better at cyber, though, because the Pentagon just is not as good as it needs to be on something like this. But the most important thing is we need political will at the top of the system in the White House. And in the previous administration, you know, we really were not taking this as seriously as we needed to.
Okay. Gordon, thanks for being here. Good to have you back on the program. Don't
Thank
be
you,
a stranger, Mr. Chang.